welcome to my guest today. It's Dave Lusty. Now, did I say that right?
What do you mean?
The surname. I mean,
Yeah.
sorry. Well,
Evening,
because I have people on, and I don't, with interesting surnames, and I just want to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, no, Dave Lusty.
Yeah.
That's all right.
And let's first of all take one.
I need to get one of those.
Well, actually, you do, because I was watching one of your videos. Not because the video wasn't good, but here we are, Dave. Let's get that right in shot, Dave Lusty, and it's also Dave does demos.
Clever stuff.
Not that clever, is it? It's welcome. This is Geeks on Screen with Coffee. You're a geek. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a pint of ale.
No one drinks coffee. I need to do these much earlier in the day for people to drink coffee.
Yeah, I thought 7 p.m. was a bit late for coffee, really. I definitely wouldn't sleep, so
Oh, okay.
the beer is to help with that. That and I had 10 litres of ale delivered by Loddon today, so...
Oh, you have to get through it?
Yes, yeah.
All right. I'm just going to... it should have tweeted out that we're live. Let's see, it should be a mention. And I can see that we're live on the YouTubes. For some reason, I'm not getting the proper updates. There's a chat window on the side. All right, let's introduce yourself, Dave. And so I've asked Dave on because Dave does demos, and I've got two questions for Dave or David. Is it Dave or David? Which do you prefer?
Dave is fine. Everyone calls me Dave or Lusty.
Okay, so I've got really just two questions, but they'll turn into more. Why does Dave does demos? And then how does Dave does demos? And on that note, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell people who you do and who you are?
So I'm Dave Lusty. I work with Mark and I do demos. I have a demo site, and to answer the question, why do I do demos? It's so partly that I understand the technology. It's much easier to understand stuff if you've actually implemented it, rather than I went through a period when I became an architect where you become that guy that draws things on a whiteboard and then you leave and then you don't do anything and then it doesn't actually work. So it's nice to be able to actually do these things. And when I turn up into a room and say, this is easy, and people go, oh, everyone always says it's easy, I can then show them a video and show, actually, it takes you 5 minutes to implement this. It's nice and easy. But also because I'm lazy. So my preference is to do something exactly once if I can help it. So I have questions from customers all the time. How do you do this? How would this work in real life? So I started recording the videos, and I've got the GitHub as well with full instructions and pictures and such. Some of them have got deploy buttons. And so when a second customer asks me the question, I just send them the link and I don't have to do any more work.
All right. So what people are looking at now is they're looking at you on top of your YouTube. And they can go to and they can find Dave Does Demos by going to youtube.com and Dave Does Demos.
Indeed.
And that'll take them there. And also there's a link to the GitHub on there. And then we're just going to show people and they can click on that and it'll open up.
Yeah. So the GitHub's probably the good starting point, or davedoesdemos.com. And there's a full index of all the demos that I've done previously on the GitHub, with links to all of the source code and everything. All the demos I like to do are fully complete and encapsulated.
So we're just looking at your davedemos.com, the main demo index.
That will take you to the GitHub.
Straight into GitHub, and then we can see ADF, Databricks, testing, Python, etc.
Including a Dropbox type solution where you can drag and drop stuff into your browser and it drops it into a blob store for you. Just my favorite one so far.
Drop that one there. Web interface to upload. Ooh, look at that. And there's a video attached to that one, and we could play that, but I'm not going to. I'll let people do that themselves. So that is, and that's a really good idea. And in fact, I've had a similar idea that I've had customers ask me the same thing over and over again, such as auditing again and again, and a few other things again and again. And it just makes sense, doesn't it? Too. And I did do a blog, and I was pointing a few people at that. But it seems like a lot of effort, and it seems like a lot of effort to write stuff down. So I was thinking,
it is for sure. The writing takes way longer than anything else. Yeah.
Do you think? And I did some screen videos and stuff, and I thought maybe the videos are easier. So
no.
Right. So that takes us into that's why Dave does demos.
Yeah.
So how does Dave does demos? Now I'm looking at your mic and I'm geeking out on that, going that's a Rode, and even I geeked out on your mic on your mic arm. That's
gotta have it so that you can bring it nice and close. And stuff like that.
But that's not cheap.
That's not necessary for YouTubing either. That is, I am a geek. I spend too much time on YouTube looking at the Joe Rogan podcast. If you've not seen that, it is an amazing way to spend 3 hours a day just watching people talking. He has some really good scientists on there. He also does cage fighting and stuff, but that's amazing.
Does he still cage fight? I didn't think he...
He does commentary on the MMA. And then I got into this one called Podcastage, and this guy just reviews microphones all day.
Okay.
And so you start watching these things. It's like, I need a setup like that because I don't have that stuff. So eventually you start gathering these things. And also one thing that I will say to make your YouTube life easier is I've got my light set up, I've got my camera set up, I've got my webcam, I've got this. So when I start actually recording, it's just click, 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 start recording. Whereas before I was setting up, tripods and stuff, and it took me an hour to set up each time.
So have you got a camera available you could show us what you've got?
So I'm talking on my terrible old webcam that I use for work, but basically that is a light box. Where's there? So you're going to flash. That's massive. That's being replaced this week by 2 new LED panels. Then I've got my Canon 90D with like very wide angle lens. Then I've got my 28-inch 4K screen. Then obviously the mic boom stand. I've just upgraded to proper studio monitors, plus the headphones that I'm wearing obviously are studio monitor headphones. And then I've put some sound panels on the wall for acoustic damping.
So you've gone way over the Keith Robinson kind of hack it together.
Yeah. So I started with this camera here, plus my webcam. So this is just a 1080p compact camera. Put it on a tripod, talking to it, that kind of thing, and just recording stuff. I used to also, obviously I use OBS, and I used to try to do the demo live and talk into the microphone and all of that stuff, no editing. And you'll see if you look at my Google BigQuery demo, it's like an hour long. So what I do now is I'll record the demo bit on the screen all the way through. Then I'll cut out the boring bits where Azure is loading or something's deploying. Then I'll go back and I'll dub the audio over the top of that with the Rode mic that's on the desk, so I get decent audio quality. The first of which was the one I uploaded today. You can definitely hear the quality difference when we go from the camera to the OBS. The actual camera bit itself, I have the mic on top now so that I don't have to put a lav mic on. If I want good audio, then I do tend to. Then I edit it all together in DaVinci Resolve and then upload it, and yeah, it takes forever.
I watched your video on that, and I hadn't seen DaVinci Resolve before. I was using iMovie on the Mac for editing, which it's a fancier version of iMovie, but because I knew the shortcuts, and there's a few things that iMovie that I'm sure DaVinci Resolve probably does.
DaVinci Resolve does everything. It's a Hollywood quality. It is used on proper feature films.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. It started off with just the color grading, and then they've just added bits, and now it's one of those industry standard bits of software. But there happens to be this crazy free version that the only limitation is that you're not able to do 4K output. And if you pay them, I think it's like $200, you get the full version with everything.
Really?
And the reason for this is Blackmagic Design sell proper Hollywood video cameras. They sell mixing desks. That's their business. This is just, in order to use this mixing desk, you might need some software. Software's pretty cheap. Here you go.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know it was that good. I mean, I have seen
it's fantastic.
Some of the Blackmagic stuff. I have seen that it's not cheap kit.
Interestingly as well, they bought Fairlight Studio audio editing suite, which is a digital audio workstation for video. And that's completely integrated now. Another industry standard piece of software, comes completely free in the box, and you can do all your editing and voiceover work from one interface.
Is that what you use?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because
I also use Audacity, and I use various things.
Yeah. I mean, I did some podcasts, so I got used to using Audacity, and the editing was always a bit that kills me. For each hour of film, it's like 4 to 5 hours of editing, or audio. Audio it was like 1 to 3, and it was just like it's so much time. Yeah.
So I've got to the stage now where with audio, like if I'm talking to the camera and I say something, I'll then just swear and start again. I won't try and edit that. It's just not worth it. And the easiest way to do that is if you're halfway through a clip and you mess up, then just do a clap or a couple of claps to get those peaks in the audio. Then you can quickly find that bit, chop it off, and really cut down on your workflow. Makes it nice and quick.
So there's and you're getting some of the LED side lights to then.
Yes, I've just ordered 2 newer LED panels that should replace this, because this is just massive. This big light box, it's like 3 feet high or something. It gives great light, so that's nice. It's consistent. It is able to balance there's the window just there, and when I'm using the proper camera, the window's behind me, so I have to have strong light in front. But pretty good.
I've got
the writing of the demo takes the bulk of the time.
Yes, I find that I have to practice several times to get it smooth, and it is that sort of, I'd rather practice multiple times than cut it up in the edit.
So interestingly, I'm the opposite. I used to try that, and then I got to the point where I realized if I just do it one piece at a time as a cut, so in the Azure portal, if I deploy a blob store, then I'll deploy the blob store, then I'll stop OBS, then I'll start it again, and then I will deploy the next component in the demo. And then I can stitch them together, because every time you go to OBS, you just pause your mouse in the middle of the screen, wait to 5, go down to OBS, then you come back and put it in the middle.
Okay, that's how you work out where the mouse is.
Yeah, and also don't ever move your mouse unless you're actually doing something is another trick. So I found this early on, that you're not able to cut stuff out, or like where Azure is taking 5 minutes to deploy, leave your mouse still, and then you can just speed that piece up with no ill effects and stuff like that.
Right. I would toy between cutting and just accelerating, and then just you can just do things.
So a lot of what you see on my demos is like times 300 speed type stuff to get rid of a 5-minute wait. So it looks like the Azure interface is just really snappy.
How dare you use magic tricks to make Azure look better?
Well, even worse, because my subscription is labeled as internal, and that shows up on some of the demos. To people watching a demo, it might look like I've got some special internal magical version that just goes really, really quick.
You can change that.
I did find that out this week, actually.
It can be whatever you like.
After 4 years at the company.
Well, no, someone had to tell me, because when we connect to each other's subscriptions, they're all the same name.
Oh, that never occurred to me. Yeah.
So mine's just got my initials on it.
Ah.
But
yeah, I might have to change that then. I could call mine Dave Does Demos.
Yeah, call it whatever you like.
Mm.
And plus, it would be then if you've got another Azure subscription. So you are, I presume, you've got your DP 200 exams and stuff.
And 201.
Yeah. So
AI 100.
You can become a trainer.
I could, yeah.
You take that, right? And you'll get an Azure subscription with $150 dollars or whatever of credit. So you also have another Azure subscription you could try.
I've got the MSDN one as well, so I'm pretty cool for subs. And my work one has got thousands of dollars a month to spend. So I'm in a data team, yeah. So the analytics team gets like tons of money.
My data warehouse shuts down every couple of hours automatically.
Probably because they don't trust you.
No. I've got a script that does it. That's one of the things I do need to actually. One of the things I want to. So
I did slip up one day when I was early on. I was learning. I think it was Hadoop. So I spun up a Hadoop cluster, and you know what it's like. It's a busy environment. You've got sales calls all the time and customer calls. So I got called away as soon as I had deployed it. And a month and a half later, my manager called me and she's like, Dave, your subscription's burnt through like $8,000 this month. What have you been doing? And I was like, I was just testing something and learning something. She's like, oh, that's okay, but it's not going to carry on at that level, is it? And I was like, definitely not. As I was destroying all this stuff, hadn't even logged back into it. That was terrible.
All right, I've been. We get alerts if it goes over. Are we $1,000 or 500? It was 500. I think it's gone.
I mean, that's not the worst I've heard of. There is a very, very well-known infrastructure guy who's been there for 20 to 30 years, who you will know, and I won't say his name on air, who was messing about. I think he said it was Logic Apps, and he created something recursive just to see.
Okay.
and that burnt through like $30,000 in a month. And he had to apologize.
I mean, I've done demos at customer sites where you spin up some infrastructure and then you go, oh, I've got a code out, and then you leave, and then kind of the following, and that's like Friday or and then Monday morning you're going, oh, what did I get? I've got budget alerts. Why have I got a budget alert?
Yeah.
I need to shut that down. Yeah. So.
But it's nice because it puts that into my mind. If there weren't these alerts and phone calls from managers, you wouldn't be as aware of it. So that when you're talking to customers, it's like, right, when you deploy your storage, all of my demos, if you go back and watch them, every time I deploy a blob store, it's like, right, change it from the replicating one that costs twice as much and put it on local replication because it's cheaper for your demo. And when you deploy Cosmos, don't leave it on the default 50,000 RUs or whatever it is. Yeah. Let's knock that down to the minimum.
yeah, you don't need that for a demo.
No, exactly. And I quite enjoy this. There's a demo that I'm writing at the moment that's just gone live on GitHub, but not on YouTube, about using event hubs to ingest stock data. And I use the absolute smallest sizes of everything. And one of the concerns from the customer was, is it going to be low latency? Is it going to be quick? And is it going to be scalable? So I used the absolute smallest I could, and I dumped like 20,000 rows of data into this thing. It processed it in under 2 seconds. And the latency that was there was due to me using the tiniest SQL box at the end that I possibly could. And it's like, well, there you go, 20,000 records in 2 seconds. You only wanted a couple of 100,000 a day. Donezo. Yeah. And, in terms of, is this scalable? Yeah. SQL goes from that minuscule one to something the size of your house. So, yeah, I quite like that, to show what you can get away with something so small.
Well, I sometimes have, I had a conversation with a customer today, and they were comparing an on-prem solution with Azure Synapse SQL pools, which is kind of my bag. And they were saying, it takes, 90 seconds to import 1 million rows on their on-prem system and 33 seconds to do it in action. And what size was that? It was the smallest size they'd have and I was getting right. The customer can't complain about, this was the partner doing it, the customer can't complain. That performance is really good because you can just, as soon as you start scaling that up, that will start dropping massively.
Yeah.
That's what we would consider a dev system.
Yeah, definitely. And my other favorite one is Logic Apps. I set one up. So Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands has an API. And when I was first learning Logic Apps, I think this is one of my early demos, I set this API up so it just calls the API every day and gets all the flight information. And it was running for like a year, and I had so much data in my subscription. Just all the flights every day, all the times, the landing times, where they came from, etc. And I was using that to do Databricks demos and stuff, so I had real data. And somebody asked me one day, well, how much does that cost? It's running every day, it's getting all this data. And I looked it up, and I have yet to be charged for that. Because the Logic app hasn't hit a penny yet, and nor is the blob store that it's dumping the data to. And you just think the capability of this stuff for such a small amount of money is mind-blowing compared to 5 years ago. Yeah,
I mean, you can build stuff, and it just doesn't cost anything. I mean, a small SQL DB is less than, £5 a month. And you go.
Yeah, and that's suitable for most scenarios.
Yeah. I know people start on the big ones, but you go, well, do you need it? Well, and they just go, well, I'll just the default, and then they just leave it at that.
It's like on-prem. The default was 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM or something. Why have you done that? It's a web server, man. So, and I mean, this demo that I did with the Dropbox type thing, I was doing the architecture of that. That again was a customer requirement for what's going on at the moment. They had a really urgent thing. We just need a way to drop some files in. And so I sat and thought about it, and there was a JavaScript API for the blob upload. And I went through the architecture a few times and gradually removed all the components to the point that blob store is the only component of that solution. And it's running the website on the blob storage that it's uploading to.
Oh, okay.
So there's no web server, there's no back end, there's nothing. It's literally just a JavaScript and an HTML file and done.
So we could all steal that and do that really quickly.
Yeah. It literally, it will take you 10 minutes to set up, deploy one blob storage account, copy the 2 files onto it, and then you set up a SAS key for permissions, send a specially formed URL to somebody, and then they load the web page, drop the files in, you're done.
Oh, all right. That's quite a nice way to just have an anonymous store.
It's not anonymous, though, because you have to generate a SAS key for them so that they've got permission.
All right. But you can then turn it off straight away afterwards. You can turn those.
Yeah, you can generate a SAS key that's only going to be valid for the next 10 minutes, send it over to them, they dump some files, and then they lose access. And they don't have any read access because there's no code in there to read the data back. So.
Ooh, quite nice.
Yeah, I was pretty chuffed.
I was also interested in how. So I've been watching. Actually, I'd only just seen it. So I've been watching some of Scott Hanselman's videos on how he's done his setup, and some of Brent. And Brent's done a new update. And I don't know. Have you seen his?
I have not. No. The thing is, once you get into certain podcasts, there's no time for anything else. I also recently took up Minecraft, and that's just eaten my life.
Minecraft will eat your life. I mean,
yeah.
I haven't played it in
a
long time. Well, I used to, but my children would say, "Can I go?" And they would get stuck, and it would be nighttime, and I'd need to kill a skeleton or something for them, or a creeper. So I'd go on, I'd do it for them, and then I'd play for a little bit, and help them out and get some stuff.
And then it's midnight.
When they went to bed. And then they would play the next day, and then they would die and lose all the stuff because they hadn't put it in a chest. And then I got annoyed that they'd lost the stuff, and then I realised I'm too invested in this.
Yeah, I mean, I was chatting to my partner the other day, and she plays it as well. So we were deeply hungover a few weeks ago. I started playing it. She literally watched me play it for 4 hours, and then bought it on her iPhone, and she's been playing it ever since. But we were discussing it. It's like, I now know the recipe for an axe and a potion, and
Yeah.
And you get to this point and you think, if I'd have spent that brain capacity learning French or the violin or anything but Minecraft, I would have a skill right now.
Yeah. You could have been Duolingoing something rather than spending that time there.
Yeah, exactly. And then I talked to Marius in the office, and he's like, "Oh, congratulations, you're finally a gamer." And it's like, "Oh, this is ruining my life."
No, but you are. Yeah. Even though you realise it's ruining your life, it's
Oh yeah, I'm still on that slippery slope, and it's
I'd step away from the. I actually removed it from my Mac. That's how bad it got.
Well, the worrying thing is we've now discovered that it's got built-in LAN mode that we can just play together in the same world. And it didn't occur to me, and I was there playing one day, and then her avatar walks into my house. I was like, "How the hell did you get here?" So I got the axe out, obviously, and and then it's like, "How did you do that?" She's like, "Oh, there's this button, and you just go there, and you can see all of the worlds of your friends." And I was like, "But we're not friends in there." And it turns out, if you're on the same network, it just tells you that there's an available one.
Because it can find things on a particular port. So I had set up some Minecraft servers, and also did it for some of my daughter's friends.
That is a well-rehearsed excuse. Congratulations.
No, but created. Well,
it was definitely the kids.
Yeah, no, well, they wanted one with particular mods, so they'd ask me, "Can we put this mod?" I mean, I don't know whether this was before.
I don't understand this. So I bought the one through the company store where you get a bunch of packs of stuff with it.
Yeah.
And I still don't know what any of that stuff is. I feel like an old man. I turn it on, I press start, and I go. And then it's talking about all of these other add-on packs and stuff that I can use. And I'm like, over my head, sorry. So I need a 12-year-old to explain it to me.
I did all this before. I mean, I had to read it up. I mean, I didn't. It wasn't like you can just work it out yourself. But I did it all on the pre-Microsoft. Because I played it before Microsoft bought Mojo, or as they were buying it before they did their own version. So it was all in the Java. I don't know whether it's still Java.
There's like 5 different versions that are exactly the same, apart from not interoperable in any way.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got to this point where I've got it on the Xbox and I've got it on my laptop, and I'm not able to play the same game on both. So I've got completely different worlds.
They did talk about trying to fix that and have parity between them.
Yes, so from what I've read, it is possible to share that world. Okay. But despite being, I like to think, quite technical, I just feel it's beyond my ken. So, but yeah, at some point I will contact somebody over the network and like tell me how to do this.
All right. So we've been talking about demos and stuff. So before I get you back on there, I've got a couple of questions I have to ask you. Mm-hmm. What's your favourite cheese?
It is obviously mozzarella. It's the king of cheeses. Pizzas and, pretty much the little mozzarella sticks that you get in McDonald's. It's just an amazing cheese. Right. And I have a pizza oven, so that's helpful.
Okay. Is there mozzarella is buff? Am I thinking?
Yeah, the proper stuff is buffalo milk, but the stuff I buy is grated mozzarella in the supermarket because you can just eat it out of the bag.
All right. That doesn't sound too healthy, though. Just
No, but lockdown. What can I say?
Yeah,
I'm going to blame COVID.
So I've seen some of your room, but also I can also see some of your props. Now I'm calling them props because they're specifically there in shot to make it look.
Could I be that shallow?
Well, I mean, where's your controller there? But you're missing an Xbox and the guitar and then the.
No, this. I use this with my Windows 10 PC.
Oh, okay, to play.
# corporate hat on. Truth be told, I'm not able to use the SAD keys. I'm not that much of a gamer.
The SAD keys?
Yeah, A, S, D, and W are the traditional keys.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm enough of a gamer to know that they're quite often referred to as the SAD keys.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're as old as I am, where you used to use keyboard stuff, mouse, keyboard, left, that's for strafing, and use your mouse for looking and and running. Yeah.
I am that old. I used to play Quake when that was released, but I'm no good at it, so the controller all the way for me.
Oh, okay, all right. What was I going to ask you something? So,
.NET.
so you, other videos. So you haven't looked at Brent's or Scott Hanselman's. That's interesting. So Brent's got a list of his kit just on a blog, so you can watch other stuff. He's done a very similar thing of going through his microphones and testing the quality out. But he's got a Mac Pro for the video rendering and the
cheese grater one.
It's on wheels. I mean, it's. I did spec it up, and it's a good 10K box.
Yeah. It won't be a Mac because I had a Mac Pro before, not the Pro, the MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
I don't like Macs. It's as simple as that. They're just not flexible enough. They don't do proper things. The interface is ridiculous. I mean, Apple are widely considered to be the people that made everyone adopt GUIs. But their GUI doesn't have any of the buttons in it. It's all shortcuts that you have to know the combination.
Yeah.
Like, how did we get to this point where Microsoft are better at GUI than Mac? It's crazy. Even when I had my 2013 MacBook, and just Microsoft has the thing where you just drag your window to the side and it flips to the side. That was a 15 quid add-on for Mac OS from some third-party developer. And the snip program in Windows, Apple don't have that. You've got to know it's like Control Alt Shift 4 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there's Control Shift 3 for an entire screenshot, 4 to do a cut, and I have to Google it because
exactly.
I keep forgetting.
But if it was in the GUI, you'd be able to just click on the screenshot application.
It does seem a bit daft, but
yeah. And being a programmer, there's no hash key. On my 2013 MacBook Pro, there wasn't even a hash printed on the keyboard. Subsequently, they've added it. I think it's on the 3 key, and you've got to press Alt-GR3.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
So instead, I've got a Surface Go, I've got a Surface Book, I've got a Surface laptop, and I love them, and I've got the dock. It's amazing.
So
how did we get onto that?
Well, it's always good to have a bit of a rant. Are you thinking of doing streaming then, or are you just going to stick to publishing up videos?
Probably eventually. I want to be able to do it well first, and in order to do it well, I have to have a good idea of like who I want to talk to, why I want to talk to them, that kind of thing. And I just haven't had time to think that through. I'm kind of, the more demos that I do, the busier I get with demos, because people see them and go, oh, that's really useful, but could you do it like this? So this one with the stock market stuff was down to the I had a function app that takes a CSV file from Blob, takes one line at a time and turns it into a JSON packet that it submits onto event hubs so that you can test event hubs. And it's completely pointless because you would never ingest data in that way in the real world, until a customer then has a requirement where they get files from somebody else and it's got stock market data in, and they want to use that as events to distribute globally around the world to load into SQL. And the way that the SQL replication was happening wasn't keeping up with the flow of data because millions of transactions. So yeah, then this guy was like, oh, but could we use that and then just do this stuff with it? I was like, oh yeah, easy. So the next demo is Stream Analytics then filters that based on various criteria and then sends it to SQL databases around the world. And the latency is amazing. But that was a prime example of I've lost a week because I did a demo and then someone asked me for a follow-up.
That demo, I don't know whether a colleague of mine saw yours, but he built something very similar to simulate streaming events. So he just had a file and he just went through the file and created, I think it was just a PowerShell script that then pushed stuff out, created JSON and then pushed it. So
yeah, very similar idea.
Don't know whether he stole yours. He didn't give you any.
I think a lot of people have had the same idea, to be fair, and it's one of those things where you're not able to really understand event hubs until you've used them, and you're not able to use them until you've got a source of events. And that's the same reason why I wrote my Garmin app for the Garmin watches, where it will send your heart rate and accelerometer data from the watch in real time up to an event hub, so that I had some data to look at. And it just turned into this whole thing with machine learning, and I got it to recognize whether it was resting heart rate, and then I could stand up while on stage and move about, and the heart rate would go red on the Power BI report, all in real time. It was really quite cool.
Oh, that's groovy.
For nerds.
Yeah, well, that is.
Yeah. So that's in the App Store. If you want to go to app.garmin.com, it's called Event Hub app, and you can literally load it onto a Garmin Phoenix watch and literally turn it on, give it your Event Hub details, and it will stream all of the data. And you can literally hold the watch and move it up and down and left and right, and you can see the magnetometer, the compass, and all this stuff in real time. It's really cool.
Oh, it's just for pretty much streaming out the raw data, and then you just ingest it in whatever you like.
Yeah, so in Event Hubs, you literally just get events saying accelerometer X, accelerometer Y and Z, and it will show you the orientation of the watch. And as you move it around, it just sends more packets out, including your heart rate. And I was planning to do a machine learning algorithm that could detect drinking wine. So you can very clearly see in Power BI, as you drink a glass of wine, it's the same pattern each time. So we could quite easily make a machine learning algorithm to count how much wine you're drinking based on wrist movement.
Yeah, I guess that would. Yes, you could do it for all sorts of things.
Yeah, a really expensive way of monitoring intake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's all sorts of things like the Japanese have for monitoring kind of toilets and stuff, because they want to monitor what comes out. So monitoring what goes in is also probably just as important.
Yeah, and I mean, that demo as well led to another whole conversation with Ian Pike, I think you've spoken to on here. He was talking to, I think it was care homes, about a way of monitoring if people trip or fall.
Yeah.
And then automatically calling for care workers or whatever. So with the accelerometers, if your vertical axis goes to a 0 G, that means you're in free fall, basically, because normally it would read 9.8 G meters per second, because that's what gravity is. And if it goes to 0, you're in free fall. And if it then suddenly stops, you've probably fallen over. So we could then send that out to Azure in real time, detect the fall, and I think it was using Dynamics to send somebody, like the closest worker.
Yeah, I've got a elderly mother-in-law, and she did have just a device that did that, and it would let somebody know. So yeah. But
that's not as cool as like all of this technology.
Lots
of links in the chain. I mean, we're not going for utility here. It's got to have as many components as we can.
Well, as many chances to break as possible. I mean, I don't know whether you've spoken to Simon Whiteley, but he's got the same mentality on demos as you have. As many moving parts as possible. We'll build them live on stage with no feasible chance they will actually work.
I have never had one of my demos fail on stage.
Okay.
With the singular exception of the other day, there was something wrong with the portal and all of my stuff just disappeared. But other than that, I've never had, because the way that I create them, it's effectively infallible. It's if you click these buttons, then unless the service has changed, you are going to end up with this result.
Yeah. And the way he was doing it was kind of on stage in front of people, and you had to make sure that this was connected to this and this way, and so many points to fail when you're kind of, unless you're following a very specific script. If you had if you scripted it out into code, PowerShell or whatever, or an ARM template, you could have built it perfectly every time. But that's part of the charm, isn't it? The watching someone do it with the possibility that it will all fall flat. They'll fall flat on their face.
That look of mild terror on their face.
Yes, right. Didn't do that 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. One of them is from Richard Herring's emergency question book. Now, are you familiar with Richard Herring?
I'm not, no.
Why am I like the only person who's aware of him? He's a comedian. He's been around for a long time and has his book of questions. So if you give me a number between 1 and 1001, I'll give you the question, and then you can choose to answer it or not.
Okay, 282.
Any reason why 282?
It's just a nice number. I mean, it's not my favourite number, obviously, but...
I don't know that. It could be your favourite number. It's quite a good question.
I was going to quote that Sheldon one then, but I couldn't remember what his favourite number was or the reasoning why it was his favourite.
Have you ever smited a foe?
Depends how we mean by smited. I've undermined some people in my time, I would imagine.
I mean, you're one of these people that I could imagine having a mortal enemy.
Not for long, though, because I'd undermine them and get rid of them.
Yeah, you would smite them.
Yeah.
So
I'd move on,
I guess so the answer is yes.
Yeah, but I do not remember their name because
that's even worse.
Dead to me.
That's worse.
I don't remember most people's names. I'm terrible with names. It's I have ASD, so there's a lot of things that if it's not directly important to my brain, it's gone. The moment it comes in, it's just gone straight out the other side.
Right.
So whereas the things that are important to me, they will stick around for years. And then there's the flip side of it, where there are things that are completely useless and not important to me that I will remember every 5 minutes for the next 3 weeks. It will just replay over and over in my mind. So, yeah, it's quite an interesting one.
I have the ability to remember songs from the late 80s, early 90s, which really doesn't serve me very well in any kind of way.
No, not at all.
It's pretty useless. Like, if I was a superhero, I'd be an awful if that were my superpower. Oh, that's a question. What would your superpower be? I've made a new question.
Annoying people, arguing with people.
You've
seen me on calls at work. Saying contentious things is probably my superpower. I said one off the cuff comment on a call the other day, and there's a meeting about it next week. Where
tell me more.
People are, what are you talking about? I was just talking about cloud architecture, and I suggested that modern cloud architecture might be better off if all of the solutions used the same IP range. So if all of your solutions used 192.168.1.0/24, you guarantee that every solution is isolated and self-contained, and that it only has a public endpoint. So an example of this would be Office 365 Exchange. On your network, you would have had an Exchange server sitting next to a SQL server, sitting next to a web server. Everybody that I know agrees that that's ridiculous. Those things have no business talking to one another.
Yeah.
So if you create your Exchange server with a front-end server that has a single endpoint, and then that's the only endpoint that's on the outside network, then all of the stuff on the inside is running on a 192 network, then it's completely self-contained. It's encapsulated. And that's how modern PaaS SaaS solutions should work. And you can do this internally. So if you've got a web solution with a database, you could have front-end public IP, load balancer, web servers, SQL servers. All of that stuff sits inside of a 192 network. And then only the public IP is the thing that's accessible. If nobody's got access, nobody can hack it. And therefore, it's slightly more secure. And it also drives best practice because there is no interconnectivity. So you don't have to open firewall ports to make that talk to that, because that shouldn't be talking to that, and therefore not good. And anyway, everybody else was talking about creating this big network and, routing and stuff. And my argument was simply that if it's not routable, there's no security risk.
That's how we used to do stuff in the old days. Like, we'd have different zones. Like, this is this zone logically, and it has an IP address range and stuff, and only certain ports are open to the outside world, and then other ports are open to the inside world, and there's a separate layer there. I think we used to have white, green.
But you're talking about zones within a network and subnets. What I'm talking about is everything is on the same subnet. So every single solution uses 192.168.1 whatever. So I could then deploy 100,000 of the same web platform using the same IP range. If I was trying to create subnets on a single network, I would have to think of a new network every time and expand the network.
I see.
Using this solution, I don't have to do that. I can deploy 20 different development environments using the exact same template, same IP addresses, all hard-coded, and I know it's going to deploy the same every time because it does.
Does Docker do a similar thing then? It must be doing
yeah, it can do.
Yeah.
So, and it sounds crazy to people that aren't used to working that way. And I had a similar argument many years ago about, so you obviously work at the same place. So Active Directory, consolidated identity, all of this kind of stuff. And the argument was, is it better to have centralized identity or to have individual passwords on a Unix box? And I lost the argument because the other person was saying, well, actually, what's the difference? As long as I've controlled the fact that that identity exists, if it's not part of this big other thing, that thing couldn't get hacked. So if this is compromised, only this is compromised. If that's compromised, everything's compromised. And I was just sat there, I think my brain's going to explode.
Well, I mean, it's isolation, isn't it? But obviously,
but if you're talking encapsulation, then there's no reason that these things should be. And obviously, for your Exchange, you need to have federated identities so you can log into it. But the Exchange server sitting behind that doesn't need the same federated identity, as long as an admin can get in and do stuff, and as long as it's secure.
All right, yeah.
And I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with it. I just thought it was a really fascinating argument for different ways of looking at things. And when you look at Unix, there's a lot of stuff like that that's different, but it works just as well, if not better sometimes.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think the people have dissed Unix, or MacOS, as we like to call it now.
I think you'll find that Mac OS is BSD.
Yeah. All right, it's not quite.
Which I suppose is technically a Unix.
It's a flavour of Unix. It isn't. It's BSD rather than Unix. But it's the same sort of POSIX style operating system. He said,
yeah, I mean, they only chose BSD because Apple couldn't really afford,
There's something like HP still own some of the
UX
code or something behind it or something.
Yeah, I know IBM had the copyright for Unix because SCO Group were trying to sue everyone on the planet for it.
Yeah.
And eventually, and it was basically, they were trying to take down Linux at a point where Linux was kind of growing. And IBM eventually stood up and just went, no, not having that. We've got the money. We're taking you on. We're going to shut you down. And you look at it now, and IBM are still there, and SCO Group, nobody really remembers who they are.
God, well, I've forgotten about them.
Yeah.
God, I do remember
they used to do a smashing Linux distribution, actually. SCO Linux was really good. And it had, I think it was Tetris on the installer. So you put your CD and you kick off the install of your OS, and then you're just playing Tetris until it's done. That was clever.
Yeah, you with your CD installers. I remember installing Slackware from 2 floppies.
I remember installing Red Hat 5 from floppy. This is before Red Hat restarted their numbers with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but Red Hat 5 was in about 1997, maybe 96. And that was like 1, maybe 2 floppies and didn't really work. But it had the full GUI, it had X Windows, you load it up.
This was pre-GUI. 1 floppy disk for the kernel and the other floppy disk for the network driver.
Yeah.
But it was really good and really quick, and it would run on the 386 quite nicely.
Yes. The surprising thing, none of them do now. So everybody talks about, with Linux, you can get the code and it will still run and blah, blah, blah. And it was probably about 10 years ago now. Everybody realized that they were targeting the i386 architecture. And that effectively means excluding all of the good stuff that's happened since. So some of them started targeting i586. And now if you get a modern Red Hat distribution, it will not install on anything older than about 5 years ago. Because it just doesn't have the right CPU flags.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, every day's a school day.
Yeah, I had a 486 a couple of years ago, and I was trying to install like a really old version of Red Hat, and it wouldn't install.
Why would you do that to yourself? I mean,
I'm a geek.
On that note, I think it's time to nominate the person that you want me to talk to, or you would like to inflict me on them?
I think we'll go with Marius Panga.
Oh, okay.
I think he's got some good stuff to say.
Anything I should be asking him about?
I always ask him about Power BI.
Yeah, he's a bit of a Power BI feed.
Another one of those that's beyond my ken, and I just don't want to learn that stuff. So anytime anything comes up, just, Marius, how do I do this? And he always knows.
He's also a dab hand on the ADF as well.
Oh yeah, he knows all sorts of things, but I don't have to ask him about most of the other stuff. It's just that one.
All right, great. Well, thank you for talking to me, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Dave does demos. And thank everybody for watching. And it's time to say good night and love you. Bye. Cool.